Right, off we go.
It was the end of the 70s and the beginning of the 80s, and I think, like with any of these scenes, like the Manchester music scene or something, there's a hole, a cultural hole to which, you know, there's a vacuum which has to be filled, and it was just what was needed at the time.
Obviously, rather worried about what the reaction is going to be to this highly controversial new film.
There was a special thing about Jennifer and Dawn, Rick and Aid and Nigel and myself in those films, in those early films, and there's a great enthusiasm, and there was a shared sense of laughter that we had.
Channel 4 was just being born, and it was just complete luck that we were there and doing something, and it was sort of on a plate for them. They said, "Oh yes, we'll have those. Oh, there's 6 of them, and him, the big fat one. Yes, nice. We'll have those."
I don't like what's been going on here while we've been away. The boys really already had a gang at the comic strip. They'd met at the Comedy Store, I think, and some of them knew each other from university and work and whatever. And Peter had kind of created the comic strip as a venue as much as anything. And then there started to be a little kind of rep company of people that regularly performed there. And they were desperately in need of women, frankly.
Which one's Gyro?
I don't know, but I'm probably going to end up sleeping with one of them tonight.
Certainly the atmosphere, I think we did probably force each other to greater heights. And I used to steal material off all of them.
Peter wanted to make films, so we got together before he had a meeting with Jeremy Isaacs, and we wrote down a list of titles.
My memory of it is of just having the best fun, and couldn't believe we were getting away with it. Couldn't believe that you could get in a car with 4 of your best mates, drive down to Devon, knowing you're going to spend, you know, the next month making great films and having a good laugh.
There was a point when everybody started having their own series. So getting them together became harder, you know. And in a sense, because those spaces were there for new people to come in, it was a new kind of thing happening. And there were new people like Doon McKeegan from Smack, who went on to do Smack the Pony, and Phil Cornwell, and Gary Beadle. And I thought they were fantastic.
It's a bear pit, you know. I used to think, God, you know, you're being filmed. You got Robbie, you got Danny Peacock, you got Age, you got Pete, you got Jen, you got Dawn, you got Nigel. You know, that's a lot of people, all bristling to be the funniest one in the scene.
It was great to be asked to do it, because this was like the comic strip, you know? Wow.
This is gonna sound crazy.
I was quite ambitious to be a serious actor. I didn't think I was going to have a career of being funny, and I managed to change it, really. That's what my main thing was. So comic strip, the mere sound of it didn't sound really what I wanted. But in fact, I enjoyed it enormously.
You lost?
Yes. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thatcher. I really am.
I went for a reading with the GLC for a character within the GLC, which was a stammering counsellor. And he sort of bulk like this, and they're all laughing at it in the audition, thinking it was hilarious. And I thought, this is sick, but anyway, it worked, and we did it.
Sly, how are you at making speeches?
Well, I've never really
Start practicing. You're the new Lord Mayor.
Oh well, thank you, Ken.
Okay, those of you that don't know, my name's Ken Livingstone. I'm looking for counselors who ain't afraid to get their hands a little dirty.
Peter would encourage us to be very hammy, and he liked a kind of stranger style, and we were often playing people who were playing someone else.
Are you in love with him, Mommy?
Yes! No! I I don't know. So you got the chance to play a version of Cher. I mean, I'm rubbish at impressions. I really can't do them. I can do something that I think is them, and I think the joke is usually that I am so far away from either looking like the people or sounding like them, you know. But it's like having a big old dressing up box and being allowed to misbehave in your bedroom.
Of course you've worked hard, and of course you're tired and old and useless.
Yes, I need a change. I was sent the script, and I thought it was a very, very good script. And a lot of these people who I'd never heard of, you know, Dawn French, and it seems incredible I'd never heard of them.
What a great gift Thatcher was to all of us at the time. She was a great, big, monstrous enemy.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change your face.
There's this great poster calling us all gorillas of new wave humour, and there was an idea amongst us that we were really fighting against Thatcher and you know, this dreadful oppression, and you know, people thought we were having an effect, and surely enough, only 17 years later we got rid of her. Just as our careers started to wane.
When we were writing the script, the thing that used to crack us up most was the line, "Kinnock goes for his gun." Because at the time, we all wanted Kinnock to go for his gun, and he wasn't going for his gun.
I really don't know what you mean.
I've been wanting that for a long time.
Pete played Lee Van Cleef in most films that we did. So it wasn't a big surprise when he chose to actually play Lee Van Cleef, because that's really who he'd like to be.
My name is Ben. Tony Ben.
We use parody and pastiche a lot and spoof a lot, and normally you can use them like a colour or a tool. You can use them to make another point, sort of thing, like GLC was done as a comic strip kind of thing. But we did want to say a little thing about the way the GLC was closed down. It wasn't a political film as such, but by using parody, you kind of graft it onto a real situation.
I'm sorry, Joan. I need this barrier. I need to keep the sea out.
I think we were very fledgling, actually, politically. I think Lexi was the only person who had his politics 100% sorted out, to be honest. I think the rest of us were floundering about and trying to work out who we were.
Praise be to Zecco.
Praise be to Zecco.
Oh, mighty Lauren. We are fast approaching our 200-year breeding cycle.
Yes, when we will be producing over 100 babies a week each.
We have but one option. To mount an expedition to another planet to find suitable men to father our race.
Space Virgins from Planet Sex had featured in various comic strip guises as posters on the wall. Or so thought, well, let's do that awful B movie, Roger Corman style thing. But then we mixed the James Bond thing up.
Thanks for the picnic.
How about a quick shower? Just the two of us.
You know, you really should see an analyst, James Blonde, because you're behaving like a jerk. Your attitude to women, your conversation, your suit. And as for this dick compensator you drive, you're nothing but a joke, James Blonde. Good night.
Yes. Good night, Puss. Should have kept her mouth shut.
It could only be a comic strip film with a title like Space Virgins from the Planet Sex.
Our planet's future depends on you bringing back offspring that are strong, highly intelligent, and attractive.
Space Virgins, for me, is a big blur of false eyelashes, very thick eyeliner, silver foil costumes, which we cooked inside. I remember my daughter came to visit, and she must only have been about 2 or 3, and she was genuinely afraid by what we all looked like.
What the hell is that then? We got the script, and I remember thinking, right, this guy's tied up. He's held hostage for his sperm. These women from this Planet Sex, they just want to have sex with him and then just blow him out. Fine. Well, if I'm going to do that, I said, I'm going to need some kind of protein, some kind of vitamins going on. They said, well, open up a can of beans.
Where am I?
In hell, mate. It just looked disgusting.
Yeah, it was painful, but only the kind of pain you have when you're having a good laugh, really, you know. We're not down a mine, were we?
I know what she needs.
I was working with Rick on the Bad News album, and we started talking about this idea of a turkey with a gun.
Don't shoot. I'm a cop.
I had to sit in makeup for like, I think it was 3 hours. Possibly with time I've come to exaggerate, but I'm sure it was 3 hours. And then, not only that, I've got the gear. I've got to wear the big, huge turkey suit, which was once worn, I think, by Griff Rhys-Jones in something. And so it was a hand-me-down.
Well. A turkey with a gun. What do you know? Frisk him! Well, if it isn't my old muscle-bound friend Turk.
I'm gonna kill you, Matthews.
It was one of the hardest jobs that I ever had to do.
Extra strength bacatracin.
Give me some bacatracin! Which is apparently steroids for turkey, bacatracin. I need my bacatracin. Certainly bloody did. I'll tell you.
This was our first animal rights comedy with Ruby Wax and Paul Bartel as a New York cop held hostage over Christmas.
If I don't get what I want, I'm gonna send you down in bite-sized portions, huh?
Bog, for God's sakes! Give him what he wants or he'll kill us!
I was a big fan of Paul Bartel after seeing him in his film Eating Raoul and cast him in The Pope Must Die. What was great was he flew back from the States to do this one.
What is it between you and this bird?
I love him!
Oh, Jesus, my wife and the turkey.
Now listen, Jim.
You stay out of this. How long has this been going on?
I didn't want this, Jim. It just happened.
Bad News is based on my experiences of schoolboy rock bands, and I hope everyone else's. Schoolboy rock bands are a great source of material for ambition that is obviously misplaced.
They were absolutely awful.
Everyone thinks it was stolen from Spinal Tap. We actually predated Tap by about 6 months.
What Adrian did on the second Bad News was have us play live at Castle Donington in front of 60,000 people, having never played as a band before, ever. And Castle Donington, 8 o'clock in the morning, was a sea of people throwing bottles and mud at the stage. As Lemmy said, it was the most stupid thing we'd ever did. There's four comedians going out into the sort of, into the Colosseum, as it were, and being, So when we came to do the football story with Keith, The Crying Game, we made the decision that when you see all these old, you see these films about football, often you just see 3 people with a rattle and a scarf in the stand going, oh, like this, and they're supposed to be in a big match, because they can't afford 50,000 extras. So we thought, well, why don't we just go into a real game? Queen's Park Rangers were playing Aston Villa, and they needed the money, and said, all right, well, you can come on at half-time. We had a choreographed sequence, which Keith and I had choreographed with the footballers. He's going to win this goal, this guy was going to tackle, he was going to get through this guy, and that would all be cut into the film with 5 cameras and the crowd.
The free kick, and this could cost Northern dear. Oh, he's just scored!
Oh, what a phenomenal goal! It's a different story once the crowd's there and it's half-time, and we were playing in front of the crowd at half-time, and some of the takes, which you'll never see, some people just missed the goals that they were supposed to score, like open goals, simply because some of the fans were shouting out, you're an actor, la, 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 and all this rubbish, and all the abuse. And I think all these actors went, we are actors. I can't handle the pressure.
I don't think people had a clue what was going on. I don't think any of the crowd understood at all what was going on. But Phil was trying to entertain them, and played Jimmy Hill and did that wonderful speech.
With me to discuss the game is Jimmy Twizzle.
Well, clearly, Derek, I think it has got something to do with the fact that I did have a pot of mushroom tea earlier on, and things are beginning to change.
Watching the football, and sort of football becoming, sort of irrelevant, really, and it's more sort of about colours. It was basically a sort of a Mickey take of the Gascoigne story. Keith Allen playing Roy Brush, the gay footballer sort of thing, and it was not that Gascoigne came out and said, I'm a gay footballer.
I know all there is to know about the crying game.
Well, you've got your story now, haven't you?
So likewise in the circus thing, we really filmed in a circus, the whole thing. So the audience were there to see the show. And in the middle of this show, Adrian came on as the clown and fails.
Sorry, Mickey. You're a failure and a disgrace to our ancient circus family. You're good for nothing, John Major.
He runs away from the circus to become Prime Minister. And there was a week, I think, when he was, or over a very short period of time, he got 3 ministerial posts and became Prime Minister, like bump, 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 like that. So we had, I thought that was what was fun in the thing is, in the evenings, he's having to do the clown act because there's no one else.
I've been made an MP!
I mean, there was a lot of kind of politics in a lot of people's comedy. Rick and I never kind of went there because A, we weren't clever enough to be satirists, and B, we thought being funny was more important than being political.
Dad, I've been made Minister of Health and Social Security. Minister of what? I'll tell you later. John, you're weak.
I love playing people who are kind of confused about the nature of the world, you know, and again, yeah, that long speech I've got in the circus and stuff, I remember really enjoying doing that.
Nobody seemed to mind the fact that Dawn played Glynis Kinnock, and nobody seemed to mind the fact that we were saying Glynis was head of the Labour Party. Nobody minds, you know, it's sort of true enough in itself, really.
The inflation rate, as we all know, has not even dropped 1%. The only thing that is dropping, Mr. Speaker, is his economic trousers. Revealing a somewhat limp policy that has continued to droop ever since he took office.
Mr. Speaker, I'm flattered that the Right Honourable Lady has paid so much attention to the size of my policies.
I did enjoy playing John Major, only because I'm not very good at impressions, and I kid myself that it was almost right. And I got to do a bit of circus work, which was fun.
I did quite a very grown-up performance in that film. I remember that, and I remember that we did have a proper, quite sort of bankable love affair. No, it wasn't too much of a gag. It was, you know, it was supposed to be tender, and I think it was. I remember a green dress, and I can remember a very tight corset. There were quite a lot of corsets on comic strip films at the insistence of Pete.
When Peter makes a film, his ideas are, he has big movie ideas for the little screen and for the big screen. But when he does telly, with Oxford, he created this world and it had to look right and be lit properly, and the camera moves had to have an energy that was, you know, not just dynamic but also fluid. He was, you know, he's always had that care, actually.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Hannah Van Hosenstraat.
Do sit down, please, Miss Van Hosenstraat. Now, what can I do with you, for you?
Oxford was the final result of one of our many projects. We've done a lot of projects that never actually got made. Now, we did a lot of work on one called the Intelligence Community, and part of that was this professor in Oxford. And also, we recently met Steve Martin, who was a very nice man, but very, very serious about his comedy. And we just married the two together.
I was asked to be in Oxford because I think they knew I could do an American accent. They sort of knew that I knew the area they were aiming at. I'm a big fan of American comedians. I'm a huge Steve Martin fan, huge Robin Williams fan, huge Richard Pryor fan. To play a depressive comedian isn't such a big stretch for any comedian. Big star comedian comes to Oxford to make a movie with wife who wants to go back to college and gets jealous of her aspiration to enter academia. But he turns out he's a spy. You know, it was stupid.
That's enough tradecraft chit-chat, Professor. It's time to take a walk.
Peter said, I need you with your top off, doing press-ups and weights in the battle. Oh, for Christ's sakes, no! I've got a gut, you know, I don't want to do that, Pete. Oh, come on, what's the matter with you? Your gut, let's have a look at your stretch marks, what's the problem? And I said, oh, all right, I'll do it. So I put a weight training belt on to look as if I was kind of a guy, you know. And I just realised that when I watched it back, I just thought it was right, because it looked stupid and vain and slightly effete. And I think that's the effect he was going for.
And of course, Lenny puts in this blinded performance as a really dangerous man.
What's great is, in his dissection of how to upstage the comedian, it's a real insight into how comedians, particularly vengeful comedians, how they really think about upstaging other comedians.
I've been thinking about how I can be real funny in this scene tomorrow. See, the other actor has the funny line. But if when I came in the room, the door fell off, I'd get the laugh.
It's brilliant, Steve.
But on the other hand, if when the door fell off, the wall came down, which set off a gun in my pocket, which blew my pants off, then I'd be even funnier. And I'd steal the scene.
There's a kind of bunch of comedians who are very, you're a big comic, but you're not happy. What's going on? Why aren't you happy? Or you're a big comic, but you're really, really serious about the job. What's going on,
If you really are a KGB hitman, how did you ever get to be funny?
When the professor here recruited me in 1968, I went to Russia for assessment. And because of my natural comic timing, I was sent to the KGB comedy training camp in Minsk. When I returned to the West, I realized, like so many other Soviet-trained comics, that if my cover as a comedian was going to hold, not only did it have to be hilariously funny, but a paranoid manic depressive as well.
My God. Just like Tony Hancock and Peter Sellers and John Cleese.
Let's do a sex scene with Jennifer, which I've never been, with Dawn standing in the doorway like this.
Lipstick on the pillow, panties, that kind of thing.
What? Those sexy panties?
Yeah.
Jennifer and I had done quite a lot of, I think we've, on film anyway, shagged virtually all the boys in turn, one way or another. There's either been big snogs or full penetrative sex with all of them, one way or another. So we kind of got over that, and we'd been doing it with them ever since the very beginning of making the film. So that it was just, you'd look at the script and say, oh, who am I snogging this time?
Well, in that case, wait for the meeting on Tuesday. No, that's a very good deal, believe me, Mike. Yeah. Look, I've got to go. My car's just crashed. I don't know, some kind of motorway pile-up.
Liz Dogs, yeah, I guess weird. We wanted to do a kind of surreal film.
There's a red pole blocking the service exit. We can't get the bins out. Would you mind moving it? Yes, sir.
I liken it to sort of like French kind of black humour. Very European, very sort of surreal in some parts. But at the same time, it's explanatory. I mean, you could just play music and have the sound down, and just the physical comedy that's involved. It's quite explanatory,
My daughter is the most precious thing in the world to me. And when she came to me and begged me to let her marry that, because I love her, I agreed. Worst mistake of my life.
I was this sort of non-speaking kind of waiter who was sort of like tiptoeing around all the tension that was going on around this wedding reception.
This seems like a good opportunity to read out some of the telegrams.
I think it was the first time I'd worked with Miranda Richardson, and she's obviously, great. It was a privilege.
Please help yourselves, won't you?
I think she's one of those people who's just more interested in the work than being a star, I think, really, and so she does what she wants.
Look, they're not firing in your direction. All the shots are going across the room, so you're quite safe. Please, it would help. We have booked you to play.
I remember as we were doing that, it was one of those scripts that didn't really seem to have an ending. But we thought, hey, it's surrealism, don't need an ending, So we just cut to Christmas.
So how'd you like the future, asshole?
Shall I make you some tea?
Yes, that'd be nice.
Got haunted house spaghetti or spaghetti hoops?
Spaghetti hoops.
Spaghetti hoops is my favourite, along with Beat Generation. Maybe it's the black and white thing of it.
It came out of the research we did for a film called The Pope Must Die, and the Calvi story was part of that, from the book God's Banker. And it was just a fascinating, sad little story.
The story is that he took a load of the he was a banker, and he was part of the Vatican Bank, and he handled their money, and absconded with some of the money, or somehow got done for it, and did a runner, and there was mafia money involved, and it was all kind of very murky, but came to London, and then was found dead on the Blackfriars Bridge, which had all sorts of symbolism of, you know, of the Black Friar and some mafia kind of thing, you know. He didn't have a dead fish in his mouth, but it's virtually that sort of thing. And when I read the book, I don't know, it sort of fascinated me, the story.
I can't remember which film it was we were doing in the series before Spaghetti Hoops, but it had used up all the budget. So the joy with Spaghetti Hoops was we had no budget, so we had one van, and we had no permissions to film anywhere. So when we went to Great Queen Street for a scene when he arrives at the main Freemasons' Lodge of London and knocks on the door, we just had the first assistant say, right, there's no traffic, go.
Is this the secret Masonic Lodge of St. James's?
Why? Who wants to know?
My name is Aldo. I'm a fellow Mason, and I'm calling on you for help.
Well, come on in, do the funny handshake.
And we did the same at the block of flats. Everywhere we went, we just knew what the action was, like South Kensington Tube, and I just walked into the real world and thought, right, we're going to steal some footage here because we had no money left.
When we wanted, for instance, we wanted Calvi to leave Italy to go to Switzerland, the only dressing we had was a sign with Switzerland pointing, and he had a set of skis over his shoulders. So it all had to be done like that, and it kind of matched the joke.
I'm going to eat that. Things will look a lot better on a full stomach, you know. I can't. My hands are tied.
But what I'm actually best at is sort of slightly inadequate. You know, when I can get the pathos of somebody like that, who's kind of inadequate, you know, and striving to do something beyond their reach, that is the kind of acting that I love, really, the kind of subtlety of it. You know, just a straightforward art case, I think, is, you know, it's not very interesting to me, really. But that kind of pathetic kind of bluster is the kind of thing that I really like.
I'm the star witness, I am. I'm going to tell them everything. Then after the trial, we're going to get a new face, new passport, and perks. Lots of perks. And all I've got to do is stand up in an open court and say in a loud, clear voice, Mr. Corelli is a...
I can just remember me and Tim off camera just laughing our heads off at stuff we were doing to amuse ourselves. I mean, just laughing and so I guess a lot of that transferred itself onto the screen, really.
Nigel would come to the set prepared, not just knowing his lines, which the rest of us never knew, but just absolutely professional and never more so effective than when he played Calvi. And I think he had read a lot, and he looked a bit like him. And Nigel has a way, he's a chameleon, you know, he has a way of disappearing entirely into a character.
I'd shaved myself to be bald, and I'd sort of morphed myself into this guy and was well padded up, and I sort of disappeared into that one. It's very bad for the psyche.
Nigel has always been just a natural actor, and he did all the kind of good acting in our stage shows, and that's he was fabulous as Calvi, and he's also fabulous as all those kind of sad sack characters. He's just brilliant at them.
There's the scene with his daughter when he walks off, he knows he's not going to see her again, and she's so selfish bitch, played by Dawn French.
See you in America.
And he just walks away. We were trying to make a big sort of sad one, But he's also very funny when he escapes from the window. He hears somebody knocking at the door, so he goes, whoops, and he's out the window. That was again filmed on the hoof. We were God knows how many floors up. We thought, can we get a few shots, Nigel? Can you just get out the window there and hang on the ledge until we say cut and then come back in and do it again?
Always wanted each of our films to have a kind of distinctly rich look. And they all have, even the very gentle ones, even the landscape ones like Queen of the Wild Frontier.
How would you describe me? Am I A, shy, B, reserved, C, outgoing, D, vivacious?
How about smelly?
Queen of the Wild Frontier was done about 2 years after Les Dogs, and still it was thrilling. Pointless eating meat unless it's fresh. I'm just plugging it, so shut up!
It was a character I knew from my childhood. She was a racing driver and had been a ballet dancer and a racing driver, and she was fantastic, her stories. And I took Julie to T Wallace to see her just before she died, and she was in Essex. And she said, I can't really walk. She said, but I crawl to this helicopter. And this friend of mine takes me across for lunch to France occasionally, because she's a pilot. And she lands in the car park in Tesco's or something, and I crawl out of my car into the helicopter. But she said, apart from that, I never go out. And so the character's a bit like her, you know, really tough and sort of original kind of English woman.
Heel farmer, good with horses, virgin, I think.
Well, you're not making yourself sound very interesting.
Well, that doesn't matter. I'm sending them your photo anyway. Well, that nudie one of you in Greece.
Oh.
It was kind of her character that she would harbour criminals and give them a good time.
Oh, you caught something then?
This is Gary. He's on the run. I said he can doss here for a few days.
Is me and Jack Doherty working together as two prisoners on the run.
Hey, no, don't! Oh, no! Oh, no, they go with us, Mr. Cole! They go with us! We'll get you for this, you bastard! Oh, I'm sorry!
I loved it. It was great to do. Particularly all the stuff when we escaped. So running through the woods and everything, and through the fields and down hills and rolling into big water streams. I'm not a natural swimmer. So when I found myself in that situation, I was asking, look, seriously, is it safe? And of course, Peter's like, yes. Now, we all know Peter's a filmaholic. He just wants to get on with it. He's not going to go and hang around and get all soppy over anything. So anyway, I found myself in the water, and I was told that this part of the water was fine and everything was fine. So I'm walking through the waters, wading through, and all of a sudden, because we're dressed in like prison gear with slippery shoes and everything else, I slip and I get caught in a deep lane of water. And I got sucked under with the current. I got sucked under with the current, and every time I tried to hold my breath, oxygen was expelled from my lungs, and I thought I was going to die. When I was going, help me, people were waving, going, yes, Gary, yes. I was going, I'm drowning. We're like, yeah, it's cut, Gary, we've cut it now. And I thought, that's it, they think I'm acting, that's how I'm going to go out. Comedy of errors, that's going to be the end of my life.
Peter will let you do new stuff. You know, for instance, there was a scene in Queen of the Wild Frontier when we had that dinner scene when I appear in that lovely, lovely boob tube thingy. We just had a ball. Josie Lawrence funny, Gary Beadle, but we weren't trying to out-funny each other. We knew what had to be done, what words had to come out during that scene.
If every letter in the alphabet was D,
it's quite small,
then
but-
Oh,
it's that mad woman from the farm. I think she's drunk.
Don't be silly, Rupert. She's having a baby.
In that episode, when they are going in the car to the hospital, because it was so claustrophobic with my legs opening to everybody, we couldn't have the real dog in there. So Lindsay Baxter had a pretend hand puppet dog.
Hush!
Oh, shut up, master! So she's not only doing her lines to me, she's doing hand acting, glove puppet, dog acting, this smelly collie. Surreal moment. Peter wanted this shot of this woman lassoing, going to the prison, seeing her boyfriend and lassoing him back into her life. Well, me and lassos don't really work, but that's cool. But better than that, this showbiz kid that he got couldn't really do the shot, the look that was wanted. So I said, I have a cunning plan, and got my daughter, who was only 18 months old, and she gave Peter the shot that he wanted, and that was her on my back, and then we lassoed Jack Doherty and went off into the sunset.
Detectives on the edge of a nervous breakdown,
Detectives on the Edge of a Nervous Breakdown? That's what it's called, isn't it?
Shut it!
Right. Detectives on the edge of the verge of an edge, who are detectives with the breakdown coming in, you know, to the edge that they're on. It's a long title, but yeah, they abbreviated it in some countries.
Detectives on the verge of a nervous breakdown?
Detectives on the... What's it called again?
The verge.
Fucking ass. Right.
Is that right? I loved the detectives one.
Let's go! Let's go! Cover me! Cover me! Let's go!
We'd run in underpants all around London. Keith thought it looked good to run around in our jocks. They were kind of PVC, very sort of sleazy, kinky sort of. And so the first bullshitters had been the takeoff of the professionals, of course.
Banging tables and shouting loudly!
Yeah, shouting, freeze and tumbling.
Quick one-liners!
Driving on a fly.
Drinking with villains in pubs! Feel like your mate!
Yeah, mate!
Shouting, cover me!
What with?
That's a good one-liner!
With one, our guns back!
Shout it!
And there was the clash of like all the TV detectives of the 80s, 70s and 60s. And I was also playing a 60s one called Jason Bentley, who's in a velvet suit, drinking wine while he's driving his Bentley around, going to big strange houses where women are walking around.
Keith and Peter directed that one together, which was, as I remember, a bit of a nightmare. Can you imagine Keith Allen and Peter Richardson together? It got done, you know, it got done. But there were a couple of moments where it got a little bit hairy. Peter was trying to act in it and direct. Keith also is trying to act in it and direct.
You told us to do it his way, and his way doesn't work.
And amazingly, we got on and we'd written 3 or 4 scripts together, and these were the 2 that we co-directed. Oh no, 3 bullshitters. 3 we did. The first Bullshitters, Crying Game, and this one. And on Crying Game and on Detective, we seemed to have one argument about a scene, about a shot, in each film, and that was it. And then we'd never disagree again. In this scene with Jimmy Fagg in the East End pub, it was a very tricky sequence about when the whole plot's revealed and it's all done in song and stuff. And we just couldn't make it work, and we kept trying different things and I'd work with the assistant cutting one way, then we'd show each other, go, that's rubbish. And then we'd try, and then come in at night and change each other's one. And finally got this sequence where we were both happy with.
What are you trying to say, that I'm the murderer?
Well, let's face it. Who had the most to lose? I would say it was someone whose future ratings were threatened by the Gourmet Detective. Wouldn't you?
Joey's got the point, out there really is no mystery. You and him and the boys in the bog, you're all TV history.
What do you want? I want to be driving around in circles for like that.
Yeah, so do I. Take them, man. No, I'm in the middle of a court chase at the moment. I'm just trying to lose a couple of has-been detectives from the 70s.
There's a few musical numbers. There's a song, I'm a copper who takes his time and lives in a world of villains and crime.
I look all around me and I think it's shocking. Then I park my car. It's got central locking.
That was a real production number. I mean, that was a real song and dance number. I mean, people were rehearsing stuff.
He's a copper who takes his time. The state of his hair, it's a bleeding crime.
Jim doing the John Thor run, doing the, God rest his soul, doing the Sweeney run, the Regan run was hysterical. I always remember that was one of the funniest bits in it, when he's sort of running, and I can't do it here because I'm sitting down, but...
Pete and Keith are kind of a particular kind of unit, and what Pete and Keith write is nothing like what Pete and I write. But really, Pete's the boss. I'm more of a mechanic than anything else. I mean, I get paid, really, to make these ideas work.
Pete Richens also joined us in the original show in 1973 for the Rank show we did, and he wrote a lot of that and sort of, I suppose, directed it in a Mike Leigh sort of a way, in that we did a lot of the improvisations for him, and he sort of directed sections of that.
They've written some really, really good scripts, really funny scripts, and no, he's the real unsung one. Pete Richens never appeared really very much, little brief appearances here and there, I think.
That's Pete. He's just very depressed.
Hello. Hello. We write in probably the hardest way you can write, which is either side of the same table. And more grown-up writers sort of work separately and then get together. We just slog it out between us.
It's a mystery to us you know, how the writing partnership works. They go away in secret, they come back, and Peter directs, and Pete Richens sometimes associate directs. You know, he's sort of consulting there on the set, but one's never sure who wrote what, whose idea it was. You know, who wrote the story, who wrote the joke.
We have the same arguments around again and again and again, and eventually sort of the material comes out at the end, you know.
Gregory Darwin Nutcase wasn't really a spoof of Silence of the Lambs or a parody of it. It was actually an attack on it, on the ridiculousness of it. But more than that, the sort of lack of morality about it.
Hello, my name's Gregory Dawson, and this is my video diary.
We wanted to mix a parody of Silence of the Lambs as a straight parody, a straight pastiche of Silence of the Lambs, and contrast it with an innocuous sort of young man that thinks he is a serial killer, thinks he's in one of these films. You know, so the Silence of the Lambs parody will be running in parallel with the kind of guys that go to these films and get obsessive about them, you know.
And this is my collection of knives and blades.
I spent a lot of the time with a camera on my own in a room, which was great. I don't know how it worked now. But they would all, you know, Pete would be in sort of telling me what to do. And then he'd give me the camera and they'd all go out and shut the door.
Lucille, I want you to check this out. And I want you to go on your own. No backup, no radio. You're on your own, you understand?
Sir.
And the rest of you, no hiding in the bushes in case anything goes wrong. Oh, shoot. Just go there, knock on the door. If the killer answers, don't try and arrest him. Just keep chatting until he gets suspicious and tries to kill you. And then chase him around the house until one of you is dead. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
In our film, we try to make people laugh by taking apart that scene where, forget this guy's 15 floors underneath through iron doors. Because now we have to put him in this school gym overnight with two old guys, and he's there. And there's a SWAT team, for some reason, downstairs watching the lift. We don't know why.
We have to be extra careful. I want 50 of you guarding him on each shift. Charlie, Max, since you were the last to arrive, you can have the first watch on Genghis. The rest of you, stand around looking worried and keep your eyes on that lift.
I've been thinking. Supposing that guy really is a monster, and as clever as they say, how long do you think it would take him to kill Max, then string up Charlie after he's found the rope to hang him up with, swap clothes with Max, and bite his face off, then somehow put Max on top of the elevator and walk out of here actually wearing his face? Night, Max.
Adrian Edmondson did such a fabulous job at that. I mean, a real gentle touch is needed to do that.
As you can see, I'm at the cinema.
Because of Genghis, every prisoner on this floor committed suicide.
I come here,
And he did it, Miss Bromley.
well, every night, really. I like it. In the dark, you know, with the big sound effects.
Wriggling around, telling them.
This is a very popular film.
It's actually quite emotional, Gregory. It's a bizarre one, because I remember there's a scene at the end with the nurse, and I remember while we were doing it, kind of feeling slightly moved myself. So it was because it's actually a rather sad story.
At least you didn't torture me. Much.
All right, Gregory, turn that camera off and come for your dinner, all right?
Yes, nurse.
The first series was directed by Bob Spears and by Sandy Johnson, well-known and film and TV directors. But the Bob Spears ones were Bob Spears was doing the ones that Peter and Pete had written, and Peter Richardson just sort of glued himself to Bob Spears' side for that first series, and Bob was very generous, sort of basically apprenticed him.
Pete would see where everything was going, where the character was going, what was doing in the next scene, up ahead. And I always admired that. I never had that ability. I don't think John Sessions did either.
As a director, I mean, he's brilliant and infuriating. He's very, very persistent as a person. But coupled with that persistence is a huge indecision, which is very confusing. So he's a very contradictory character. Because he'll say, let's do this, then he'll start chewing his lip very persistently, and then he'll say, what do you think? Do you think I should do that instead? And then once he's changed his mind, he's persistently on that one. Then he'll change his mind again. So he's persistently indecisive, is how I would sum him up.
In Four Men in a Plane was the first time Pete and I had a stand-up row. Well, we were sitting down in a very cramped aeroplane at the time. I kept on finding new ways of making this speech funny for Nigel and Rick. And they were laughing. He said, yeah, that's really, do like that. So we came to the take and I did it like that, and we all thought it was very funny. Pete said, cut, and we had to do it Pete's way, and I rebelled. I said, no. Of course I did in the end.
I thought, where have I heard this row before? We've had this row 15 years ago. And I thought, this is fantastic. This is the gang, you know. We're back. I love this. I'm with my mates in a field in Spain, having the same row. It's great.
He was always a very, very hard director to work with, because he never really let you go. He'd always just keep pressing you to do what he wanted you to do and not to think for yourself. And he was probably always right.
He's a bit nuts, really, sometimes. That's in life. And this transfers to the work as well. He's like that when he's working. You're never quite sure what he's going to do next.
Pete's always writing films, he's always pushing, he's always trying to get things going, you know, Stella Street the movie, Churchill, the Hollywood years. He gets these things done and people respect that.
I've worked with Peter an enormous amount, and he will listen to you, and if you want to do something a certain way, he'll do it. He will actually do it if he thinks it's funnier. You know, he's got sufficient humility, Peter, to go, okay, yeah, what you're doing is actually funnier. That's what's so good about working with him.
But he was an incredibly good writer. He invented a new kind of style of, I don't know, do you call it satire? I don't know what it is. Films like The Strike and GLC had, you know, where you, and he's done it again with the Churchill years recently, where, you know, you kind of do a Hollywood version of an obviously non-Hollywood story. I think those are some of the bits of genius in the comic strip.
There was no big careers. Nobody was worrying about careers. There weren't kind of career egos in the way at all. It was, if anything, it was more like a kind of arena where you were just out to make your mates laugh. You know, like most people do in the pub most nights. We were just doing it on film.
Gary. What? Catch me. Right. Tally-ho.
By the second series, Peter knew how to direct. You know, I'd go away and do another job for 6 months a year, come back, and by which time Peter's, you know, got developing shots with people coming in and out, to the extent that by the time we get to Four Men in a Plane, the opening sequence of that is like that famous Orson Welles one, or the Altman one in the beginning of The Player. And he's got a scene we did in an airport where the camera starts up on a crane. They had it on wheels. It comes down off the crane, little wheelies, comes round. We use the whole of Stansted Airport, and there's dialogue scenes in about 5 places in the airport, and it's one take. There's no cut.
Hey, Ian. Remember me? Tim Goodman, back leasing.
The Swindon back leaser. I thought you'd been outlawed.
We had crowd control people just here and there. Lots of little were on the way, and I could see when the camera's there out the corner of my eye, right now's when I move over there, and he goes past me through to Adrian, who's doing dialogue at the top of the other queue. Then whoosh round here. Then suddenly Rick's going by on a little trolley. Dialogue. We pick up with him. We go past that into the Boots the Chemists, where Peter is talking to the woman about a camera in a working airport. I mean, it's just something like a 4 or 5 minute developing shot. I mean, it's an incredible piece of film directing. That's by the end. At the beginning, it's like if you think of something like War, in the first series, that was one of the very early ones. The crude rawness of the filming to an end shot like that, where you've got a serious piece of brilliant, sweeping shots.
And I think a lot of those things like Little Britain and Fast Show probably wouldn't have the look that they have if it hadn't been for the comic strip, because if you're talking about grotesques and stuff, the comic strip had its fair share of that. And this whole idea of having the film aesthetic, the movie aesthetic, this idea of going out and doing it all on location, and that was the comic strip. Because Pete didn't want a studio audience, Breaks the reality.
We were following on, in a way, from ripping yarns. It's not that dissimilar. And people were more than willing to invest, half an hour in a programme which they kind of knew the people who were going to be in it, but they didn't quite know it wasn't going to follow on from the one before. Whereas now, you watch Will and Grace and you want the same programme the next week in slightly different sets. I'm not putting it down. I mean, I like sitcoms a lot, but that idea of doing a different story every week and people playing different characters is, of its nature, hit and miss, actually. But people were very prepared to kind of sit down and watch it because the good ones were really good. The bad one was very bad. But when you got a good one, everyone knew.
So what do we do now?
Peter and I have got 2 or 3 scripts sitting on the desks of the mighty at the moment, hoping to kind of get made. And I'd love to think that there'll be another comic strip one day. I'd love to think that we would maybe use new people. There's so many good comedians around. There's so much comic talent around.
Listen, if Peter started doing it again and working it again, I think it's part of my neurosis. There's no way I can get away from it. There's no way I could say no. There's no way. It's like being drafted by spooks, or it's like your past catching up with you. Just as you get out, they drag you back in.
I would make another one. I'd like to do it in the old way. I think the spirit of the first lot was great, and I like those kind of ensemble pieces with people playing 2 or 3 parts each. Those would be good to do.
Oh, I'd love to do some more again. I don't know about the others, because when we returned to do 4 Men in a Car, 4 Men in a Plane, it was just like holidays for money. It was just fantastic, as far as I was concerned.
I would ask him if we could start filming when we're available, possibly the following week, rather than actually tomorrow, because that's the thing. If Pete calls you and asks you, can you make a film, he means tomorrow morning. So, yeah, I would. Absolutely, I would, yeah. If not for any other reason than the crack.
I'll pretend I didn't hear that.